Hey, what's going on everyone? Today I'll be reviewing Oshi No Ko. Oshi No Ko is a story that, although received quite a lot of positive reviews, still has some very mixed opinions on it. Some think it's weird or even gross, but others truly love the series. What do you think about Oshi No Ko? Comment your thoughts down below. To quickly summarize Oshi No Ko, it follows the story of a doctor and his patient who were super fans of Ai Hoshino, a famous Japanese pop idol. However, they both died and were reincarnated as Ai's twin children, Ruby and Aqua. We watch as Ruby and Aqua navigate through the highs and lows of the entertainment industry as they grow up living within it. Now, continuing on with my review, there will be spoilers for Oshi No Ko, so if you'd like to just see my rating and don't want to see any spoilers, skip to the timestamp on screen. To start off, I want to talk about how good both the openings to the show are. The first opening, Idol, was a huge reason I even watched the show in the first place. Despite being catchy and having great visuals, what really made it stand out for me was seeing the lyrics. Without even having any context, there was still an uneasy feel to reading some of the lyrics, even though the song itself, for the most part, was so upbeat and happy sounding. And not to mention, after actually getting context from the first episode, the lyrics just hit even harder and really made it stand out. The second opening, Fatal, is also really good, and I'm excited to see if the third will live up to the other two. And continuing on, I want to talk about the first episode as a whole. The episode itself was essentially like a movie, being almost an hour and a half long, and played such an important role in the story as the prologue. And let me just say, at first I felt like the show was off to a weird start. However, as it progressed, my opinion quickly changed. But what really made it so special was the way they built a connection with Ai all the way up until her death at the end of the episode. She literally only exists for that one episode, and they build her up to make her feel like the main character. And despite that she isn't the main character and only appears in the first episode, almost every time she gets brought back up in the show, it hits like a punch to the gut. For example, almost any time Aqua has flashbacks of Ai, or when characters like Akane or Kana unknowingly say something that connects directly to Aqua and Ai. Just the way it makes you feel, even though you only knew this character for one episode, is something not many shows are capable of doing so well. It's almost as though I can understand the exact feeling of both Ruby and Aqua throughout the show. The first episode is just simply so amazing in every aspect. And at the end, when the narrator says that the whole episode was just a prologue, all I could do was sit in shock thinking about how good this series was going to be if this is how the first episode was. Moving on to the characters. I feel like the characters in the show are very well written and all generally serve some type of purpose. Of course, as I just discussed, Ai is a very interesting and important character despite only being around for the first episode, and her twins, Ruby and Aqua, are both great characters in their own respect. Ruby's character is fascinating as she has goals of becoming an idol to follow in the footsteps of Ai. However, right towards the end of season 2, she learns about the people responsible for the deaths of both the doctors she loved, which is now her brother, although she doesn't know that, and her mother Ai, whom she adored both in her previous life and as her child. So once she learns about the person behind the deaths of two very important people to her, she has her mind set on revenge, which is very interesting to see as we pretty much get a character flip in Ruby and Aqua. Because up until the end of season 2, Aqua had been the one set out for revenge, but he had finally gotten over it thinking his father was already dead, which we then learn isn't true because the man he believed to be his father wasn't actually his father. Both Ruby and Aqua are written beautifully, and the way the second season ended really has me excited to see where it's going from here. I also definitely have to talk about the supporting characters like Akane, Kana, Taiki, Mem, Melts, and several more. Both Akane and Kana are love interests for Aqua, which in and of itself create for an interesting side story, but it's not as though they are only good characters because they are there to be a romantic interest for a main character. Both Akane and Kana are characters you have certain feelings towards that change throughout the show. Like for example, I initially felt it made more sense for Aqua and Kana to be together. However, after all the events of the reality dating show, I really liked Akane and Aqua being together. Not to mention, Akane as a character is probably my favorite in the show. I really love how when Akane is first introduced, we are kind of supposed to think she's not really all that special. But of course, as we learn, she's an outstanding actor. Also, the somewhat of a rivalry that Kana and Akane have is fascinating because they are in a way both jealous of each other and have respect for each other, which is why they don't even like each other to begin with. Each of them have their own very distinct personalities, and they are both intriguing characters for that reason. The last thing I want to talk about is character design and animation. The character design is very good in my opinion, especially that of Ai, Ruby, and Aqua, with the main thing being the stars in their eyes. Not even just that, but the design for the eyes of all the characters in the show in general are beautiful, and there was clearly a lot of effort put into it. As for the animation side of things, it kind of ties into the character design as well, because when Aqua and Ruby's eyes go dull and lose the bright star, it leaves a very unsettling vibe when you're watching, and I like that a simple change can make such an impact on the viewing experience. And I also wanted to talk about the animation for the Tokyo Blade play, because although this show essentially has nothing to do with fights or anything of the sort, I wasn't expecting the play to be so beautifully animated from an action standpoint. The visuals during the play were amazing and captivating, which again added so much to the viewing experience of the show. Lastly, I did also want to mention that I've seen people complain about the ending of the manga. Now, I myself have been trying my best to avoid any spoilers from the manga, and with that being said, I don't want to jump into any conclusions about how I feel about this show until I've seen the story for myself. But part of me is kind of unable to enjoy this to the full extent because of all the complaints, and I'm really just hoping I'm going to be able to enjoy the upcoming season. That pretty much concludes my thoughts for Oshi No Ko. However, I do have one last thing that I kind of want to address. The thing is, I've seen people talk about the manga potentially pushing towards a relationship between Aqua and Ruby, which in my opinion is really weird for multiple reasons. However, after doing a bit of research, I did see that although the illustrator was apparently pushing for some type of romance between Aqua and Ruby, the writer said it's not going to happen, which I'm glad it seemingly won't take a turn for the worse, because the show as a whole is super good and I feel like something like that could absolutely ruin it for no reason. Overall, to answer what I said at the beginning of the video, I do personally believe there are some uncomfortable aspects to it, but that's part of what makes it such a good show, because it's very realistic. And I feel like if people have issues with the contents of Oshi No Ko, they really need to take a look at the entertainment industry in real life, because it's very similar to what's shown in the show. Oshi No Ko is a show that highlights the harsh realities of the world's entertainment industry, and it does a good job at creating such a bright and lively aesthetic while hiding a dark and harsh story underneath it. Anyways, now that's actually everything I had to say about Oshi No Ko, so it's time for my rating. At the moment, I think Oshi No Ko is a 9.7 out of 10 with much room to grow in the coming seasons. As a show that only recently caught my attention, it absolutely lived up to and even surpassed the expectations I had for it. Thank you for watching my review of Oshi No Ko. If you did enjoy, please do consider leaving a like and subscribing to my channel for more content like this in the future. Have a great rest of your day. Peace.